Looks like you lost another one.
Welcome to Summer Showcase. Right before we came on air, Randy just banged out all the push-ups that he owed Jamal in pretty good fashion there. That was pretty nice, and he is definitely feeling it. This is why you don't double or nothing.
Are on fire.
54 push-ups in.
I was very wrong. I was very wrong about that.
Extremely wrong about that. Yeah, we'll get into that in a moment as to what the push-ups were. I'm Michael Washington. He's Randy Schrader. Welcome to Summer Showcase. So we're into the playoff formats now, or playoff shows here. Yeah, let's go. The playoffs have figured out. But before we get started on that, I want to give a quick shout out to the Cologne Centaurans for finishing 6-6 and having a sensational year. I want to give a shout out to the Panthers Warclaw. Even though it was ugly against Prague, they ended up finishing out the season 6-6 as well after what looked like it was going to be disastrous of a season. And I'm sure by 6-6, it's probably a disastrous season on their front. And I want to give a shout out to Barcelona. 36 points. 36. I think I gave them 2 touchdowns actually in the last week. So scoring 36, very, very disappointing year for them. Obviously, they have a tumultuous offseason. They have to figure out what the hell they're going to do with that franchise. And fingers crossed that they continue playing just because of the brand and the name and what it means to the ELF and European American football as well. So hopefully they can figure that out and whatnot. And those were the 3 big things I wanted to give a quick shout out to. Do you have anything you want to give a quick end of the year regular season shout out to as well?
Barcelona, like you said, I think we all said they're going to at least score a touchdown, and they scored a lot, 36 points. I mean, that's probably how many points they score all year. I should have looked at
it's close. Let's see. You take the 36. They scored 117 all year. So
okay, well there you go. And I know Paris was playing against a backup quarterback there, but they are on a roll going into to the postseason a little bit. So just to kind of add that, but no, I think it's time to focus on the playoffs.
Focus on the playoffs. Well, first let's start with the reason why you had to do the push-ups. You and your lovely wife, by the way, ckcustoms.com, go visit the website and help them out as well. Support local business. Decided to pick the Raiders T-roll in the game against Munich this weekend. In a game that Munich pretty much was in the playoffs, they were pretty much a lock. After Madrid scored 63, basically the only way the Raiders T-roll was going to get in was by scoring 54. Or no, 55. They had to score 55 points. Not only did they not reach 55 points, they didn't score a touchdown. They went up 3-0, and they apparently thought the game was over because they didn't do anything else for the rest of the game. Randy, how are we feeling after that performance and those push-ups now?
I'm happy for Munich that they got that win. I did not believe that they were going to beat T-roll, obviously, and I'm really happy for Madrid that they got in the playoffs with that win. So all that to say, what a horrible showing for T-roll in a game that they need to win. Now, I know the weather was bad, but it just looked like they did not come ready to play at all. What an ugly game. Turnovers, bad snaps, dropped balls, sacks. It was bad all over the place, and in a game that you need to win. So disappointing. T-roll having played in Europe for a long time, they were kind of the gold standard in Europe for a long, long time. I would say them and the Unicorns, right? For a long time, those were kind of the two gold standard teams in Europe before all this. So, yeah. Thanks, Jamal. Jamal came in and reminded me of why my arms are on fire right now. I sent Jamal a video as proof that I did. And I did my push-up. So, yeah, just a disappointing game overall. And after that, I mean, to be honest, I'm glad Madrid's in the playoffs and not Tebow, because Madrid, at least, they've lost a couple games. And I know they had they didn't have a good showing in Frankfurt, but I know they also flew there the day of the game. They learned from that mistake. They got to Croatia 2 days early, and it obviously paid off. But they've been playing good teams close. So I'm glad that they got into the playoffs. Maybe we'll see, some fireworks fly against Ryan.
Yeah, first and foremost, what's up, Jamal? Thank you for joining us. Shout out to my unofficial producer and statistician as well. He's really saved me a lot this year for sure. I think for me, what I want to say as far as the Raiders, the Shady Sports Network fitness plan,
the season is not over. The season is not over here, Jamal. We're gonna have a great playoffs here.
First and foremost, for me, I need to question what is happening with the front office of the Raiders T-Roll, because this is the second straight year that they have changed quarterbacks that they brought in the offseason. This time earlier than they did a year ago, and they still missed the playoffs because down the stretch the team just did not perform. So I need to wonder if maybe they might learn from their mistake next year and just stick with one friggin' guy through the whole year.
I mean, Christian Strong, in my opinion, was that guy last year. They should
not. Yeah, for sure.
And it's way too late, obviously, to go into that. But yes, they have a track record of this, and I think it's just, in my opinion, when teams have great quarterbacks, it's hard to find that replacement, and you hold everybody to that standard. Sean Shelton's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in Europe.
Yeah, for sure.
Since he retired, I think it's been them trying to find the next Sean Shelton. And I mean, it said a lot to me. It was early in the game. I think it was a third and 10 or 3rd and 13. It was 3rd and long, and they threw like a 5-yard hitch.
Yep.
And tackled immediately. I'm like, this is a playoff game essentially for this franchise, and that's what we're doing. That's kind of when I knew, like, this is not going to be pretty, and I'm going to be doing a lot of push-ups.
Well, I mean, it just, last year I feel the same way as you did as Christian Strong felt like was the guy. This year, I don't think, even though D'Angelo Fulford came back into the league and kind of struggled down the stretch, I think that was a lot of it was the team around him more than it was necessarily his play per se. But they were 2-0. Like, they had won both games with Fulford. And then they bring in N'Kosi Perry, and I think they just expected N'Kosi Perry just to come in here and just light the world on fire for being a D1 guy and, et cetera, which is fine and dandy to have that thought process, but it needs to show results. And I don't think they really showed the results that we all expected, because especially for you and me and Jamal, I know all three of us on this show in particular have questioned his overall putting together 4 quarters. And I know I've mentioned it to Zach on Overtime, which, by the way, is coming back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. I don't know if that's his time or my time. I'll have to get you on. I'll have to let everybody know that one. But I mentioned to Zach on Overtime a couple times that N'Kosi Perry has not put a quarter 1 to quarter 4 game together, and he didn't at all. And in this game, he didn't even put a quarter together. It fell apart after a drive. Yeah. So I hope T-Roll just gets off this Sean Shelton train. Let it be. Live it in the past and find a quarterback and stick with him next year, because even though I don't really care if T-Roll makes the playoffs or not, because I just don't root for him, I would love just to see that franchise just finally make a decision and stop yo-yoing the quarterback position.
Yeah, and also, we don't have to try and make these perceived home runs at quarterback. And what I mean by that is Sean Shelton's the 2 guy. He played in my conference, actually, in college, smaller conference, and lit Europe on fire. Jackson Erdman for Vienna when they won. He's a D3 guy. I know he won the Heisman for D3, but the name of the D3 Heisman's escaping me. So he's a heck of a player, and he went to Penn State first. But I mean, sometimes it's about finding the right fit, as a person, rather than bringing in these big name guys. So not saying anything against who they brought in. I'm just making the point that it needs to be somebody that they can invest in a long run instead of making all these changes.
Yeah, I feel like it's something along the lines of they need to make it so, because let's face it, the scouting side of things and being able to spend time with these quarterbacks probably isn't as extensive as some of the other leagues, right? Like you don't get a tryout basis with 3 guys in there all at once and you're vying for one spot. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's probably along the lines of, if D'Angelo Fulford had your team at 2-0, why make the change? Right? Like at that particular moment in time, even if the offense wasn't looking as good as you would hoped it had, why make the change? Why not just stick with them and see if you can grow into the system that your coaches are putting forward?
Yep.
And they didn't do that. They brought in one guy who was inside the Raiders program. He lit the world on fire in week 3. And then they let him go and brought in Perry. So it was like, not only did they just do it to Fulford after week 2, they didn't really have a plan for week 3. And their plan was to bring in somebody and hope that he worked out, which he did, and then bring in Perry. So I don't know. I just hope that T-Roll team, because you saw it down the stretch here, they were definitely defeated, and Munich was the much better team on the field in that game. So, with that being said, 6 teams in the playoffs.
What's the definition of insanity?
Oh, you just keep doing the same over and over again. Keep doing the same thing. Yeah.
Hopefully they break that. Hopefully they break that cycle here next year.
How many years though do you have to do that for it to be considered insanity? Is it 2 or is it 3? Like
exactly. Yeah.
6 teams in the playoffs. 6 quarterbacks. So Jamal posted a wonderful video on Athletes Forum. Go check it out on YouTube if you have not seen it, where he basically asked the question, which quarterback do you trust the most out of the 6? If you could rank the 6, how would you rank the 6? I don't know if you saw the video, Randy, or not, but because I know you're not really a social media presence guy. However, if you could take these 6 and rank them backwards for me, in your opinion, on who you would trust, and I'll do mine simultaneously with you as well, so that way we can go back and forth off of one another. Who would be your number 6 on the trustworthy, and why?
Jamal, it was so nice on your show that we had to do it twice. Okay.
Well, I wanted to mention it because I did throw my top 3 out to Jamal on Twitter, but I didn't really go into detail as to why, and I just figured it might be a good idea to give Jamal an opportunity and chance here to shine a little bit with some topic that he did. Bring some light to him.
Yeah. I think I take Steven Duncan at number 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think he's the biggest wild card out of the whole ordeal.
He's either going to throw for 5 touchdowns and 500 yards, or he's going to throw 3 picks and 100 yards, and it's going to be an ugly game. And I really like him when he's on. Like last week, watching him play, I mean, it's like watching an NFL quarterback out there. He's just dicing the people up.
Yeah.
And I would love to see them keep this game close against the right fire. And I'm a Steven Duncan fan. I said earlier in the season, you asked me who my wild card was for the MVP, and I said Steven Duncan. And if he can just start playing better against some of these good teams, he looks the part. He's huge. He's got a big arm. And I want to see them get it done. But yeah, I'm going Steven Duncan number 6.
Jamal coming in with the fun facts here at the bottom. Sorry, not so much fun. Yeah. I like Steven Duncan too. He's my number 6, and for various reasons. I still haven't seen him put it together against a top team. Like, he's had good games, but he hasn't put it together against the top team. And going in against Ryan week 1 is rough.
Can I ask you a question about your list? So is this the top quarterbacks as far as talent, or are we taking into account the team as well? Like, who do we think is going to take the team the whole way? Because those are two different questions for me in this.
So basically, how I ended up doing it was originally I did it. My top three changed compared to when I first told Jamal because I got thinking about it afterwards, and I focused on which quarterback did I want to trust the most with their in the playoffs, regardless of what their team may look like.
Okay.
So that's how I wanted to look at it. So
Got
my top three did change very slightly, but it did change compared to what I told Jamal on X. So my number 6 was
who's the
Stephen Duncan.
best, but it's who you trust.
Right, who I
Got
trust.
it. Okay. Who I
So
trust.
my number 6 was Stephen Duncan as well, because he's a rookie going into he's a playoff rookie, especially at the ELF level, and I'm not sure what to expect from him, moving forward. Because, like I said, against the top team, he still hasn't, put it all together. Shout out to Ryan Fire News. Thank you for joining us, Ryan. I appreciate that as well. So so this is what Jamal said. QB that would take you to would lead you to the promised land, basically. So number 6, Stephen Duncan. I think we both are in agreement there. I don't remember Jamal's list off the top of my head, but I remember the video. I can check it out in a little bit. But who's your number 5 and why?
Chad Jeffries. And I like Chad Jeffries. I think he was a dark horse candidate for the MVP kind of all season. And you're talking about the best of the best quarterbacks. So I almost feel bad like ranking these guys like number 5 is bad. He still brought his team to the playoffs.
None of them are bad. None of them are bad.
Exactly.
It's
That's
just
what I want people to understand. I'm not saying number 5 is bad. I'm not saying Stephen Duncan is bad. They brought their teams to the playoffs. They're the top echelon of quarterbacks in the ELF. That's for sure. But as far as what I trust to lead me to the promised land, Chad Jeffries, number 5. I've just seen too many up and down games this year to feel 100% confident when you get to a playoff game that everything's going to click. And I know a lot of that has to do with defense and some other side, the other side of the ball with the Ravens. But sometimes just too many mistakes for a veteran guy. So that's why I'm putting Chad Jeffries at number 5.
Yeah, Chad Jeffries is my number 5 as two as well, but it's more so because of the fact that I just don't know if he's quite there to lead the team around him if the team around him isn't on their A game.
Right.
So it's like as much as I like him and as well as he played, and fingers crossed, maybe he goes out there and proves me completely wrong. I just feel like that Jeffries is a little bit behind the overall 8 ball in this case, or against some of the other guys that we're going to be listing here moving forward. So who's your number 4? Because I think this might be where we start differing.
I was going to say, I think this is where we're going to really differ. I think he's the most talented guy on this list. So I'm gonna put Zach Edwards number 4. And you're talking about who we trust to bring in the playoffs. Again, the most talented quarterback in the league, and I don't even know if it's really close. But again, same thing. I've just seen a little too much up and down. It's not necessarily him. It's the team around him. And it's a lot to overcome when I watch, and every week there's a bad snap. There's horrible penalties in crunch time. There's questionable decisions made by the staff as far as some play calling, all that stuff. So that's why I'm putting Zach Edwards at number 4.
At number 4, yeah. My number 4 is actually Riley Hennessy. Not because I don't. Primarily just because I don't know what we're going to get from Hennessy. Like, I think Hennessy is one of those guys that is super talented, but I don't feel that the team is winning really necessarily because of him as much as it is just the team around him. So if they're off a little bit, does he have enough to be able to pull out the victory? He was my number 3 originally when I first responded to Jamal. It's just, I think that he's a beneficiary of the team around him as much as they are of him. So it's kind of like a very, I just don't know if one's off the other, if Hennessy is capable of necessarily bringing there. But he did bring him there last year, so there is a possibility that he could do it again, without a doubt. So it's just right now for me, number 4 is Hennessy at this point in time. So who's your number 3?
So I think I'm gonna go Ben Holmes.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'll get to Riley. I'll get to your points about Riley Hennessy when I have him in my list.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because that's an interesting take. Number 3 is Ben Holmes, and this is a tough one. The top 3 is tough.
Yes.
I'm probably more in line with Jamal here, but the reason I'm saying Ben Holmes is simply because 1, they haven't been there. 2, Vienna and Stuttgart, for that matter, are really tough to judge going into this playoffs because Vienna, especially because who have they really played recently? And going in with essentially 3 weeks off, it's just it's interesting, kind of the how the playoffs here shook up. And I think for me, the Rhein Fire is still the team to beat, and the team that's probably the hottest right now as far as just pure momentum. And Vienna's just a tricky one. Now, I will say this, as far as if I were to build a quarterback that I'd want, it'd probably be Ben Holmes. He is the most pure passer that I've probably seen in this league ever. His ball placement is elite. His anticipation is very good. And he can move as well when he needs to. So as far as kind of maybe like the perfect quarterback, it'd be Ben Holmes. He's everything that you want in a quarterback. I'm just putting him at number 3 simply because he hasn't been there, but I also could see Vienna winning it all.
Yeah.
And him winning 2 MVPs. 1, 2, and 2 for the championship game.
So I want to clarify my top 4. My top 4 changed probably about 7 times in between in between my initial reaction on X and in this show. So like I've been toggling back and forth with this when I knew I was going to present it to you. I also knew I was putting you on the spot, so it was a little bit unfair. So compared to me, so I knew that if I kept changing it, then at least I could, do this, do that, whatever. However, number 3 is Ben Holmes for me as well. He's a guy that I was really hesitant to really get behind. He's played really well for Vienna this year. They are the most balanced team in the league. Is he going to put his team in a tough spot, though? That's the question. He's got the capabilities to put his team in a situation where, oops, I made that mistake. Now can I get myself out of it? And if he can't, which I don't see it being necessarily an issue because I think Vienna is going to be there in the championship game as well. It could lead to a surprise upset of Vienna through this playoff because there is a lot of good teams in this. So I got Holmes at 3 just because, like you said, he's a rookie as well, as far as being in the league for the playoffs for the first time in this league, and he benefits from having a very talented team around him as well. So he. Slight number 3. He was my number 2 originally. He's a slight number 3. So who's your number 2?
And let's not forget that they're playing, at home the whole time, and they're playing.
Right.
I easily again could see them.
Yeah.
They're probably in the championship game. So
yeah, most likely. Yeah, for sure.
And whoever they're playing is going to be a great game. This is where we differ. I'm going to put Riley Hennessy at number 2.
Yeah.
And the reason is. This is where we differ, I think, a little bit. Is he is not going to put his team in a bad position, in a bad spot. He has played with Coach Newman for a while, so there's the familiarity there.
Yeah, that's true.
And as far as when you watch their offense, it just flows. It's very rhythmic, and he makes really good decisions. You can see he's the one that's in control out there, especially in the RPO game. You can tell they give him a lot of freedom, even when a run is called, to get to certain things. And for example, like he threw a touchdown. It was a run. It was like an inside zone. He threw a hitch all the way outside. I think it was Lewis Geyer that broke a tackle and scored. I think it was against T-Roll. I can't remember, but yeah, just stuff like that. That's a veteran quarterback in the ELF for you.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why I'm taking a number 2. And it's close between number 2 and number 1. So that's who I trust the most.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, for me, it was the top 4 that were all pretty close and whatnot. For me, Zach Edwards comes in it too. And I'll tell you why. First and foremost, this offensive line has been rough for Paris. So it has not been really necessarily any fault of Zach's. One play told me how much he wants it. And it was that run against Madrid to put them into a tie to go at least put them into overtime with a chance to potentially win that game. And that told me that is a quarterback who wants it. That is a quarterback who is going to stop at nothing. I mean, he dragged 3 guys into the end zone. Now, granted, I understand it was a prevent defense, but he was not going down. He was not going to be denied. So, as a leader, when you are looking at from a team perspective and you're looking at your quarterback, those are the plays that are going to be remembered. And he played really well last week. They put up 44. I know it was against a backup quarterback, but they put up 44. If this Paris team can just be at the team can play it like an A-, I'll even say B+. I think Zach Edwards is so good that I trust him to be there at the end to put me over the top and hopefully bring me to the promised land. So for me, Paris, Zach Edwards, that team is only going to go as far as Zach Edwards is, basically.
I think if you asked pretty much any defensive coordinator in the league, and then you asked them who do you not want to play at quarterback against that quarterback, it'd probably be Zach Edwards. He's got to be probably the toughest guy to prepare for in the league. So, yeah, I get it. I think for me, it's just again what's around him sometimes.
Of course. Yeah. If we're going just based off the team rankings, Paris would be lower. Like Paris themselves would be lower. It's just basing this on who do we trust the most. Edwards has shown the capability of putting a team on his back, and basically Paris is where they are because of Zach Edwards. Like you said, their identity was Zach Edwards all year long. So you can't really say that about the other quarterbacks in the playoffs. So, that's the reason why I had to go back and really, really assess this question that Jamal put forward and really put it into perspective of like, okay, who do I trust the most to get there? And if I was starting a team in the ELF and these 6 quarterbacks were available to me to try to make it to a championship game, I would have to put Zach Edwards, in my opinion, in the top 2. So
yeah,
that was another way that I assessed this and looked at this question as well. So
yeah,
well, we agree with number 1. So
I get it, but then if you're saying teams that just kind of put the game on the quarterback's back, you got to say Chad Jeffries must be up there then too, right? I mean, he probably has the team on his back just as much as Zach Edwards as far as the teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so as well. The only thing that worries me about Chad is I don't know if he has the same gear, the next gear that like Zach has. That would be my only question is, does he have that next gear? Because let's face it, this Munich offense is pretty spectacular. And we've seen Paris's offense, kind of sputter along, with Zach even playing well around them. So there is a little bit of a difference there. I think Munich's offensive line is much better than Paris's.
Yeah, and I agree with Jamal. He's kind of the biggest wild card. If Chad plays really, really well,
oh yeah, Munich
can make a run.
They could make a run for sure. And Jadrian Clark, obviously, number 1 for both of us. For me, it's just he's already been there. He's already done it.
Every year he has started in the ELF, started from week 1, he's been in the championship.
Yeah.
And even the first championship game, when they played Frankfurt, they got the ball with a few seconds left, and he drove them down the field and still set them up for a field goal that they barely missed by like a foot. So you're talking about a foot away, inches away from being a 2-time champion. So I also know, in Ryan, all that they kind of let him control in the offense. They trust him a lot, and he's very much involved pre-snap. And so as far as who you can see between the 2 core, between Riley Hennessy and Jadrian Clark, those teams trust those guys solely at the line of scrimmage and all
they
that.
Absolutely should. Yeah.
Yep. And the only reason I'm taking Jadrian over Riley Hennessy is simply he's won it. And a lot of that has to do with the team. But
yeah, this is exactly what Randy was just talking about here. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, no, I get it, man. And again, like I said, the top 4 to me are very close. It just watching Zach Edwards this year for me, and the reason why I put him at 2 was just literally more of a all year thing. Just watching him be determined to try and make this happen, with the exception of maybe one game because the team was just getting their asses kicked. But other than that, it just feels like Zach Edwards has been. I'm going to take this. I'm going to put all 22 guys on my back, and I'm just going to make this happen. It felt like that all year long. So,
and I think watching him, he's not the most talented guy of these 6, right? You watch Steven Duncan, you're like, dude, that dude can freaking sling it. He's standing at the goal line, chucking it all the way to the opponent's 20, right? He's chucking it 80 yards downfield. Zach Edwards is running over 3 people. Chad Jeffries is putting up 500 yards a game. And Ben Holmes is making throws that you're like, how is that even humanly possible? And Jadrian Clark goes out there. He gets them in the right play. He makes good decisions for the most part. And, that's why he's number 1 in my opinion.
Yeah, it just Jadrian is for me. I feel like he has the highest floor, but he also has one of the higher ceilings. So like that's what you want when you're assessing quarterbacks, as well. And I don't.
Can I pose a question for you, Mike, as you're on here? So I like what Jamal said as far as the legacy. So here's a question I got for you: which quarterback needs to win, and even more specifically, needs to win to either stay in the league or needs to win for kind of his job? Who has the most pressure?
Okay, so I'll say for a legacy standpoint, the one that has the most pressure is definitely Zach. I completely agree that Zach needs the win, probably more than anybody else, just for legacy purposes. For a championship purposes or to stay in the league type of situation, Steven Duncan. As weird as it sounds saying that as far as a rookie's concerned, because the likelihood is Duncan's going to get another chance. But let's look at it from a standpoint. He was let go by Warclaw, right? And then he got the Madrid job after Chris Helbig went down. Helbig's likely going to return. I would imagine will probably likely return, and Madrid will probably give him another shot because they were playing really good ball with Helbig. So Duncan is now auditioning across the board pretty much, especially at a playoff standpoint, for those borderline teams that just missed the playoffs this year. Because you got to figure one of those guys are going to probably want to come in there. Like a Raiders maybe. I don't think Warclaw is going to look at him, but they're going to have a whole new coaching staff, so maybe they go back into that tree, that bucket. As much as I would love to see Isaiah Weed back with Cologne may look at it and go, he's been there where we didn't get us there. So, maybe Hamburg or Frankfurt decides like, hey, we're going to try to go all in. So, I think for a job purposes, it's probably Duncan that needs it more than that. Legacy, probably Edwards. But I think overall the biggest pressure, maybe not from an organizational standpoint, but maybe from a stand or like a fan standpoint, might be Ben Holmes. Just because Vienna didn't make the championship game last year, and you figure they brought Ben Holmes in thinking he's going to be the MVP, he's going to do this, he's going to lead us to the promised land. If you don't make it to the championship game as Vienna, maybe Ben Holmes might overall have the absolute biggest pressure from a fan standpoint, because the organization is really, really well run, and they don't ever point the finger and they don't ever blame anybody, right? They don't just go, this is you. Yeah. Internal discussions absolutely have to happen, though. And when you look at it from a standpoint from a fan, if I'm a Vienna Vikings fan, I go, we missed the playoffs, we missed the championship game last year. We brought in Ben Holmes with all this hype train. We didn't make the championship game the second year in a row. I'm not going to be too happy. So maybe overall the most pressure might be actually Ben Holmes, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's a good point. I didn't think about my mind immediately went to Stephen Duncan when I asked that question, but I think you're right. If you're looking at, and let's be honest, with Stephen Duncan, like you said, is auditioning for those teams, the Frankfurt, the Hamburgs, the Colognes, all that. So, but as far as from an organizational standpoint, the Vienna Vikings standard there is championships,
Yeah.
and not even probably making the championship, but being more than serviceable in the championship too. So that's their standard, and I know they want a quarterback that can come in and be their Sean Shelton, if you will, and stay there for a few years. I think they were a little surprised when Jackson Irvin hung it up. So, I think you're right, and I don't know about. I think legacy for Zach Edwards, maybe he needs that one playoff win to kind of get that monkey off of his back. But he did just lead a franchise in their second year to the playoffs. Had a great year doing it. I think it's the fashion in which they either win or lose that determines the legacy in this game. I mean, we've just seen too many games where he puts the team on his back. They get some crazy penalty at the end of the game and end up losing, right? So he can't go out there and lay an egg against Munich. But
I think for the most part, if you take a look at anybody from this season, you ask anybody who's followed the ELF all year long, and you ask them if Paris's issues are on Zach Edwards' shoulders. I don't think there's anybody that's watched the whole year would blame a chunk of anything that's happened with Paris on Edwards. So
without Zach Edwards, they probably win.
I don't think they make the playoffs. So
no, definitely
not. This is a question by Jamal. He said that with the Madrid's roster, would you take Duncan or Isaiah Weed?
With their roster, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting question because I think Madrid's offensive line is certainly not one of the best in the league. I think they're probably in the middle of the road. And Isaiah Weed gives you a little bit more mobility than Stephen Duncan, and hence part of the fumbling issues with Stephen Duncan is he gets hit a lot. And now, when I'm watching the games, I mean, he holds on to the ball for a long time too. He has no problem getting hit with that like 6'5", 6'6", 240-pound frame, and you can see that when he plays. But that's an interesting one. As an organization, I would be surprised if they brought Stephen Duncan back, just knowing this league and how it works. They expect so much from these quarterbacks that why not give Isaiah Weed a shot? And I want Stephen Duncan in the league. I think he's good. I'm not saying that. But yeah, I don't know. I think as far as how you are asking specifically the roster.
Yeah.
I think Isaiah Weed fits pretty well in Madrid.
This is a very interesting question, primarily because you're looking at it from a standpoint of two different quarterbacks, right? Not just play style, but also left-handed versus right-handed as well, in a sense of what else. I like Stephen Duncan. I've said it all year that I felt like Warclaw did them wrong. It just, he's been so absent when it comes against the top teams in the league. Outside of Paris, and even in both games against Paris, it wasn't like he lit the world on fire. He's been kind of a ghost against some of those more top teams. And it really begs the question is, would Madrid move on from a guy who led you to the playoffs, basically, right? Like, let's face it. I mean, he got him to the playoffs. The only way that I see them making a change at the quarterback position, if it's not Stephen Duncan next year, would be if they bring Chris Helbig back. That would be the only thing I could see. I don't think Isaiah Weed is going to be in the conversation for Madrid. However, I do agree with you, Randy. I do think Isaiah Weed fits this roster better. Yeah. Because he is more mobile. I think it opens up the offense a little bit more. You think about how well this offense has played at times. If Weed was able to do 80% of what Stephen Duncan does with his arm, I think that it would open up this offense much, much more and actually take pressure off of that offensive line. Whereas like Steven Duncan basically stands back there and gets rocked because he can't really move. It's like me back there, like 40-year-old me trying to throw around the ball out there or whatever. So, but yeah, and I agree, Jamal, too. Madrid is close, and I think they're close primarily because of the defense. They got some playmakers in place, and a lot of other things going for them. So they are pretty close.
And I'll shift gears real quick too, if it's all right, talking about parity.
Go ahead. Yeah,
because it's something that has been brought up all season, and we have 50% turnover in the playoffs. Now, I guess you could argue from the opposite side, it's still the number 1, 2, 3 seeds from last year. So I would like to see some parity there, but I'd like to see that. I mean, we have 3 new teams in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Last year it was Frankfurt, Berlin, Vorklaw, right? And now we got Madrid, Paris, and Munich. And all 3 teams that have never made the playoffs, which I know Jamal likes his facts, but I thought that was a fun fact while I was looking at it, and I thought that was just kind of interesting.
Well, let's also look at it from this standpoint as well. Technically speaking, you're talking about 3 expansion teams.
Yeah.
Because usually an expansion team is within the first 3 years. So Munich was last year as a year 1 expansion team. Paris was a year 2 as a year 1 expansion team last year as well, and Madrid is an expansion team this year. So not only is there a 50% turnover, it's 3 expansion teams that this league has introduced in the last 2 years, and they're there, right? Like, I mean, they're there.
And I beat up on Paris all the time, and that's my fault. But but I mean, hats off to them for being in their second year. And they were close last year, but they definitely did put the pieces together to make a run this year. Munich, same exact thing.
Yeah.
Really. And they just did what they needed to get that extra push, that extra win to get in the playoffs. And then Madrid was, they needed some help along the way, but they got it. And now they're in the dance. So it's just cool to see.
Yeah, I honestly think that the ELF parity-wise, from a standpoint of a parity level, it was much better than people realize this year. Madrid made the playoffs at 8-4. Cologne finished at 6-6. The Tyrol finished at 8-4. Wroclaw was 6-6. Berlin was 5-7. I mean, that's your next tier groups of people. Frankfurt had a solid start to the year. They ended up 4-8, but overall they weren't, like, at the beginning of the year they weren't terrible, and they played teams tough too. So, it's not like that those 4-8 teams really didn't play teams tough. I mean, the only 4-8 team that didn't really play a lot of teams tough was Milano, but they had a bunch of other issues that were taking place as well. So, I think there was a lot more parity this year than people think. And I'll be honest with you, even the bottom tiered guys, Prague, VFR, those 2 teams specifically, I thought played a lot of teams stronger this year than they did last year. There were still some blowout games for them just because I just don't think they're quite there yet. But overall, I thought they were much tougher of an out than they were a year ago in a lot of cases. Even if it was maybe for 2 quarters, maybe 3, it ended up being you could see it, the improvement, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and Prague got their first win.
Yeah, Prague did get their first win, for sure. Hamburg was probably the only team that I was really disappointed with, outside of Barcelona, just because, Barcelona had Levi Lewis come in, and I really liked Levi Lewis. So.
Yeah, I was disappointed with Frankfurt. I just think they got and Hamburg as well, but Frankfurt, I thought they were going to be contenders, or at least vying for a playoff spot, and it just,
when you have Zaraka and Markel Castle, you expect to be contending for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we talked about more than I thought we would talk about at this point. I thought this show was going to be like 35 seconds left, so 35 minutes, but we are already past that point.
Sorry. Let's get it. You want to get in the predictions?
No. I'm enjoying the conversation. I think it's a very intriguing conversation to have. A lot of people talk about quarterbacks. Like when you start talking about quarterbacks in general, like you talk about the NFL and you talk about the CFL and all that stuff. Like quarterbacks are always like the number one talk. But I feel like there isn't a league where quarterback is more highlighted and more needed or more under the white microscope more than the ELF. And I think that's probably because it's they're all American imports, so it's like you expect your team, to be here, because that's all Americans do basically is eat, live, breathe football. Whereas overseas, it's not it's not their job, right? Like they all have second jobs, so
quarterbacks in this league, and I'm talking from experience, are on the shortest leash I have ever seen.
For sure.
In professional sports, so. It's a carousel. It's a merry-go-round every year of quarterbacks.
I think eventually it will level out. I think eventually it will level itself out. And I think once they figure out a structure and pay and, they're able to start making money, it will level itself out. Like that's the 100%. Biggest thing, right? As far as
when they start signing multi-year and especially kind of guaranteed contracts, it's tougher for teams to move off of them. And the first guy that does that, then the second guy does that, and then all of a sudden, it'll have a snowball effect. And I'd like to see that for the league. I think it's easier to follow teams when you know who your quarterback's going to be. And look at the NFL. There's a lot of quarterbacks playing in the NFL because of injury and all that, but a lot of teams know who their starter is going into the season and who's under a 4-year contract, all that stuff. So,
eventually the league will get there. I mean, the league is still in its infancy itself. It's only year 4, so it's not like that this is a league that's been around for 45 years. And this is he was the first guy to do it. He was the first guy to do it. Multi-year deal. Quofied with Ryan. Just the first quarterback that does it, and it will spiral for sure. So
and I need a double. I feel like Jake Sullivan had a 2. I might be completely wrong. I thought he had a 2-year contract in Frankfurt. In 22, 23, I could be wrong. So don't quote me on that. We can ask him.
But we can ask him. But I don't think Sullivan
do it though.
Maybe he might have. It's possible, but if he did, I don't remember being announced because they said that Quofi was the first multi-year deal. So.
Yeah. False year 2, Leipzig signed 3 guys too. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Leipzig. Yeah. All right. Now we can get into predictions. Do you have anything else you want to talk about with the regular season? First and foremost, I want to give a quick shout out real quick to all the ELF content creators, Jamal being one of them, Ryan Fire News for being a presence, Euroball Chow on X as well, Alex, Fourth Down podcast or Fourth Down Fiasco podcast. Shout out to all of them for being involved and supporting us here at Shady Sports Network, supporting us, Randy, here on Summer Showcase as well. And this is a community that I love, and this is a community that I am starting to grow further and further into, and I've loved every guy that I have met and talked to and gotten to know throughout this process. You as well, Randy. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to everybody that follows this and whatnot. So
the love and appreciation is mutual, and I really do. All those guys that you named, it is awesome to see everybody taking their time to shed some light on this awesome league. Yeah,
and Justin Kelm, I cannot forget him. I know he's probably not with us tonight, but I can't forget him either. He definitely is a very knowledgeable and very well connected individual and whatnot. So, without a doubt. All right, here we go. Oh, damn!
Yeah,
wow, damn,
man. Over there.
Look at you, man! I tagged you. I mean, I hopefully didn't wake you up. We appreciate the there for you tuning in for sure, by any means. All right, predictions. Let's jump into it. Week 1. coming up. There's 4 games. No, there's not 4 games. There's 4 teams, 2 games. It looks like the 1 game on each day. The Munich Ravens traveled to Paris to take on the Musketeers. This is that Chad Jeffries and Zach Edwards conversation we were talking about earlier.
I am excited for this game.
Me too.
We get a matchup that we didn't see this year. That's a different conversation, but I'd like the league to maybe schedule things a little bit differently, get a little more different teams playing different teams. But I think the way they do it's a little weird. But man, what a great game! I'm so glad. I'm pumped for this one. This is a tough pick. The reason that I'm making my pick is because of defense. It has nothing to do with the quarterbacks. It has everything to do with defense. And I know that Munich is coming off of only giving up 3 points to T-Roll. Paris is not T-Roll's offense. And I say that with all due respect to T-Roll's offense, but this is a completely different animal. Also, I need to look at the weather report, but it probably won't be a torrential downpour. So give me Paris because I trust Paris's defense more than I do the Munich defense here. And I think that we might get a somewhat high-scoring affair with Paris's defense making a play late or something like that. So give me Paris. I'll give you a weird score. Let's go 29, Munich 24.
29-24. Jamal, I'm curious what your score is on this one and who you picked now that you've said this. Shout out back there, by the way, to Caroline CK Customs.
Do you want my pick? Is that what's your pick?
Paris.
You gotta be on camera.
You're gonna be on camera and do a score. I mean, come on. You're killing me here.
I was gonna pick before Randy spoke. Like I was picking Paris, and it's not because Randy did. So I'm gonna pick Paris. 47.
Whoa.
47. Wow. Okay.
To 40.
Wow, that's a game. That's what I'm getting. That's what I want to get behind. That would be a great game to watch.
Hell yeah, it would be.
So anyway, okay, all right.
I'm not doing any push-ups or anything.
Oh, I'm doing push-ups.
I don't know who he picked though. He said 35,
yeah,
24.
35, I think he's going Paris.
I think he might be going Paris too.
Okay, so no push-ups this game. That's right.
I think we're all going Paris. I mean, what does it say? Beer over the? No, he's going Munich.
He's going Munich?
He said Munich greater than the croissant.
Oh, we might have to do push-ups again.
Greater than the croissant? Is that what he calls them?
He just put a beer emoji.
He put a beer over, yeah. Give me the flock, Randy and Big Mike. Wow.
Whoa, 35-24? You think that Zach Edwards only going to score 24 points against Munich's defense?
Yeah, hopefully Paris fans do turn up, Ryan. Like for sure. Hopefully they do as well. Jamal going with Munich in this game.
All right, what do you have, Mike, before I start challenging this guy to more push-ups? Because I feel confident about this one.
Well, first and foremost, I will say beer is greater than croissants. So I love croissants, but I do like my beer. So, croissant, right? Croissant. Or whatever. Croissant. I also have Paris in this game. I trust the defense better. I think that secondary is better across the board. I think they can get pressure on Chad Jeffries. Unfortunately, though, I think that Paris's offensive line is not as good as Munich, so it could make it for a long day. We'll see what happens. I think Paris's defense, though, gets it done. I liked your score of 29-24. Mine was 26-21. I think it's going to be right around that score. And again, the weather will play a factor in it, and it could be high scoring 47-42. Like, I mean, it could definitely be as well, but I'm going to say Paris 26-21.
The weather in Munich is beautiful this weekend.
They're not in Munich though.
Oh, I'm sorry, in Paris.
They're not in Paris either though.
Where are they?
They're playing in. They're in France. It's just not in Paris. They're in a.
Oh,
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember where the name of it was. I saw it this morning.
Yeah.
I think it's going to probably be beautiful anyways. So
it's rain on Friday. Well, it depends on where it is in France. Oh no, yeah, it should be good weather.
Okay,
so it's gonna be hot. It's gonna be hot. That might help. That might help France.
It's 2 hours away from Paris.
Jeez.
Yeah, 2 hours away from Paris.
Oh,
I think it's because of the Paralympics.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um.
Are we getting push-ups about here? Because
Yeah,
Jamal,
I was about to say,
is he coming?
Jamal, so we got to go best 3 of 5. I feel like I'm gonna get one of these, and this is why.
Hey, you got the first one, Randy.
Why I shouldn't gamble. That's right. It's tied 1-1. Yeah, we need to do best of 3.
You're tied 1-1, so
We got to go at least do a season, see what it's like. I do feel confident about Paris. As I say that, I don't. But
I was gonna say that wasn't very convincing.
I mean, I'll do double the points.
Oh no, it is 2-1. It is 2-1. It is 2-1.
Yeah,
So you're going best 5.
Yeah, I'm going best of 5 here. Yeah, I'll double push-ups. I'll even do this. I'll triple the push-ups if I lose and you can only do double. Like, I'll give you the choice here.
You hear that, Jamal? There's the challenge laid down. If you win with Munich, he does triple the amount based upon what the score is.
If I gotta do 60 push-ups, I'm gonna quit the show.
Watch this score end up being like 24-23, and you have to just do 3.
I hope so. I hope so.
Oh, Jamal, yeah. Hey, we got the Shady Sports Network fitness plan here going on. So 3's company. That's what he said. He said 3's company.
Go. I'm so excited.
There it is.
And
you won't be so excited if it's 30-3 Munich.
Yeah, note that. Oh man, 90 push-ups.
Then 54 plus 27 is 1 carry the 1, 81 push-ups.
Yeah, that is what I'm worried about though, Jamal. Madrid bullied T-Roll up front.
Yeah.
Turn on the game and you're like, they're getting 2 yards of push before it even looks like T-Roll's getting close to the ball. So, man, I hope I'm not wrong. But Paris got Zach Edwards. I'm riding with Zach.
I'm riding with Zach too, so I'm going with Paris as well, but I'm not doing push-ups. That's between you two. All right. On Sunday, Madrid is going on to take Rhine. The Rhine Fire.
I hope this is a good game.
I am afraid it's not going to be. I'm really scared it's not going to be.
Madrid is really a wild card, right? If Steven Duncan plays well, I mean, they are the only team to beat the Rhine Fire in the last 2 years.
Yep.
So, I could see this being a good game. I also think that Rhine Fire is the hottest and playing the best football in the league right now, even though they're the number 3 seed. So, give me Rhine. How can Madrid win? It's going to be exactly what happened. Yeah.
I could tell you this one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Food poisoning.
Yeah. If some starter trips on like the hotel rug before or something and sprains an ankle or something. No, I mean, we saw the recipe, and it's that earlier in the season, the Rhine Fire were a little bit off. They played a close game in Madrid. They played a close game against Berlin. And the recipe was they were out of sync. There was a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes from everybody. So if Madrid does have big play potential, and Steven Duncan has a big arm that can strike from anywhere on the field, if all of a sudden, Jadrian Clark throws 2 picks, and you're looking at Madrid going up by 14-0 or something, that's how obviously Madrid wins this game. But Madrid has to play a perfect game. The other way that they win is Madrid has a good defense, and they're one of the best defenses in the league. So as far as points given up, so let's not discount how good that Madrid defense is. So that's the recipe: play good defense, get turnovers, and then on offense, Steven Duncan's got to play a great game. But it's not impossible in this league for a team to win. But give me Rhine. With all that said, that's how they win. That's how they win. But give me Rhine and give me Rhine to score. Maybe not as much of a high-scoring game for them, but give me 28 and Madrid 15.
There was a whole lot of words there.
Sorry.
They could have just been shortened to just food poisoning. Look, I know that they beat him earlier in the year, but Ryan was not playing. Ryan was not playing good ball at that point. They were really struggling coming out of the gate. We all saw what happened in the second game. I mean, that game wasn't close. So let's see. Ryan Fire News said in Madrid playing against us in front of 8,000. It was the one game played in the little stadium. This week, Madrid will be playing at our real home. I don't know how big of a factor it is for an opponent, but it'll be crazy attendance, and that means it's loud. Trust me, it factors in. It does factor in for sure.
From an offensive standpoint, there you gotta practice your silent count. It just throws off your rhythm a little bit, and I don't know if Madrid has played a game like that this year, so it's tough. It's tough to go to Ryan and win.
This is a story in 3 parts. Ready? How can Madrid win? Iceman's back for the first time this season. Fire 27-9. Yeah. I think it's going to be. This is going to be tough sledding, I think, for Madrid, and primarily because it comes down again to Steven Duncan, right? Like it's Steven Duncan that is, he implodes against these top teams, like when it really matters the most. Because remember, the difference between the 2 Madrid and Ryan Fire games this year were Chris Hellbig on the win, Steven Duncan on loss. So I don't know if Duncan is good enough to carry this team to the promised land as far as beating Ryan is concerned. So I got Ryan winning this one as well. I think this was going to be probably not close, unfortunately, 33-12. It's very, very close to Jamal's score. It's not going to be. This game could get out of hand, unfortunately, and hopefully it doesn't. So hopefully it doesn't.
I mean, it's Ryan. They are the best team in the league until they are dethroned, and they are playing the best ball in the league right now. So
they're the defending champs until they're not.
Yep.
Right? Like,
yep.
That's how that goes. So, CKCustoms.com. Go hit it up. It's our unofficial sponsor. Go support them. Yeah, I got you. Don't worry, Caroline. I got you. It's nothing but love over here.
I said today I'm in her studio. I'm set up in her studio today. We got jackets everywhere. We got her working hard on that. We got bags on the floor.
Yeah.
It's a whole operation over here.
Whole operation. Yep. Yeah, they're killing it over there, down there in North Cackalack. So go support them. And use my current code too. I didn't do the current commercial today. Sorry. Next time. It's a little late for it now. Yeah, I don't have anything else. Do you have anything? Any final thoughts on the regular season? It's over, and I think
playoffs, baby.
Playoffs.
I
wish we had the playoffs. At least the voice thing. Playoffs.
Oh yeah. Before we go, are we not going to talk about Florida State?
Oh, we can talk about Florida State. It's okay.
I saw Jamal Jamal. I don't know if Caroline's going. It's they're 33.5-point favorites.
It's supposed to rain. And I have way too much work.
We have a baby. It's 3 hours away.
And
how are you not going to go?
We're going to the Tennessee.
She's got a lot. She got a lot of work. Tennessee comes to Charlotte, and it's an NC State Tennessee game in Bank of America Stadium. We will be there, so that will be a fun game.
Are you closer to? I'm assuming Charlotte's closer to you guys, right?
Yeah, we're in the suburbs of Charlotte.
Yeah, I was gonna say Charlotte's probably closer to you. I like this Charlotte team. Who will be the MVP in your opinion? Non-Fire News throws that out there.
Ooh, yeah.
I heard Glenn Tunga in the background.
I think the wife is right.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been Ben Holmes if he was healthy all season. But, yeah, I think Glenn Tunga dropped off a couple games there at the end. Not in play, just not as many opportunities.
Regular season?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going Glenn Tunga. What about you?
Glenn Tunga.
Yeah.
I mean, he was really the only guy who took over games.
Yes.
when it mattered the most is when it took over games. So I am the resident Florida State fan. I've talked about it extensively, and since we're going to talk about it right quick, a story in 3 parts once again. Jamal, Big Mike, FSU beat BC, but don't cover. There's a couple things I want to say about this game against Georgia Tech. First and foremost, it was a game that I kind of expected it could possibly go that way. Unfortunately, we didn't have our offensive coordinator. He was suspended for the game. Hakeem Williams was a late game scratch from an injury that was lingering from camp. And Mike Norville did not look comfortable calling offensive plays at all. It was the most conservative I have seen FSU be in the years that Mike Norville has taken over. And that was before, Jordan Travis and all that stuff. Like, DJ Uiagalelei is not the reason that we were conservative. Everybody wants to talk about it being the reason that they were conservative, but he actually put together 2 good years at Oregon State. So we know he can sling the ball. We know he can do it. And if you're not going to trust him, why did you recruit him to bring him in, right? Like, why did you bring him in from the transfer portal if you're not going to trust him? However, it doesn't annul the fact that we just lost to Georgia Tech. Like, it was not a pretty game by any means. It was just way too conservative play calling, and I think Mike Norville would look back at that and go, that was on me, my fault. Because that's just the kind of person he is. So hopefully it gets better against Boston College, because I lived through the Willie Taggart era. I don't know if I could live through another one like that, So
let's also not forget that Georgia Tech is not a bad football team.
No, they led the ACC in rushing last year. They were just ranked dead last in defense. So if that defense was, ranked 8th in the ACC, that team was going to win a lot more games than because of the ball control alone. And Jamal, you're right. Yeah, the defense was a letdown too. I think FSU needs to find lightning in a bottle at the linebacker position. I like DJ Lundy, but he was getting exposed so hard against the running backs when it was 1-on-1.
Yeah.
So.
And now, honestly, watching that game, the first drive Florida State had, I was like, wow, you guys are about to win by 40 points.
Yeah, that's what it looked like too. Yeah.
and then it's kind of a tight, bad weather game the rest of the way. It was an interesting game.
They just did not look prepared to be in a dogfight, and Georgia Tech did.
Well, if there's a time to lose a game, it's the first game of the year. And now with the 12-team playoff, you're not out. So
no, and that's the one thing that a lot of people. That's one of the main reasons why I wasn't worried. And even if it was a 4-game playoff, I mean, a 14 playoff, I still wouldn't be overly worried as long as we're able to beat Clemson and some of the other teams. So
Caroline in the background, she's just saying, "Oh, they can't name themselves national champions now."
And as far as that's concerned, I was not one of the Florida State fans that was crying because I kind of had a feeling after the championship game that we were going to get out. Here's my only issue with it, and my issue is different than most Florida State fans. Most Florida State fans are like, "We were undefeated." Okay, we were undefeated, yes. But Jordan Travis was the primary reason why we were left out of the playoffs last year, right? That's basically what the committee said. And then he didn't get a single vote for Heisman Trophy. Isn't Heisman supposed to be the best player in football?
Yeah, I hate that. I think
so. So you keep a team that went undefeated, won their conference championship, and you leave them out of the playoffs because of one guy, and then you vote for the Heisman Trophy and he doesn't get one vote. That seems kind of weird to me. No, my biggest thing is the other players on the team. Like, Jordan Travis was only one person to that team. They won those 3 games without him down the stretch because they were a good team. Those other kids deserved a chance to be in the playoffs. Even if they went out there and got beat by Michigan 63-3, who the hell cares? Those guys deserved it and earned that opportunity to at least be able to play in the playoffs and get a chance to compete and play. Like, you can't tell me as a former player or a player in any which way, shape, or form that you would not feel a certain type way if you were on that Florida State team and your defense went out there and beat Louisville the way that they did in the ACC championship game. Granted, I understand Louisville was 8-4, whatever, but you went out there and played that way, and you wouldn't, in your heart, believe that you had a legitimate chance if your defense played that way to at least make a game against Michigan, right? Like, and you would also feel like that you deserve that opportunity to be in that playoff, to be able to at least go out and show what you're talented enough to do. Florida State had 10 players drafted, 13 players overall in the NFL on NFL rosters this offseason from that team. Every single one of those guys was robbed of an opportunity and chance to play in a playoff game because a committee blamed it on one person getting hurt in a game against an FCS school.
I agree with you and I understand, but I did not appreciate their attitude in the bowl game.
Oh, well, I mean, as far as the bowl game was concerned, what were they playing for?
I know, but Georgia didn't have anyone sit.
That's my point. Georgia was making a point. Florida State was making a point, like saying, well, we're just not going to play in the bowl game.
I get it, but I just, as a player,
I understand it. I think that the players, the players that sat out, they should have played, for sure. I completely agree with that.
The point of the college football committee is not to make the most fair decision. It's to get the best ratings and get the best.
Of course, it was all money based. Obviously, Bama wasn't going to be left out of that. As soon as they beat Georgia, there was no way they were going to be left out of that.
And they picked correct. They picked correctly. Those were all three of those games in the college football players were awesome games to watch. If Florida State was in there, who knows? But I don't think it would have been pretty.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they didn't make the right choice. I am saying that they did not make the choice in the best interest of what the committee has always said it was. If it's supposed to be the best 4 teams in the league, the best 4 teams were the undefeated teams that should have been in. Period. It does not matter what you think the outcome is going to be. You don't play the game on paper. Everybody knows that. You don't play games on paper. Just take a look at Georgia Tech and Florida State. If you played it on paper, Florida State walks away and beats Georgia Tech handedly.
Yeah, but you have 13 games as a reference, and you have 3 games without Jordan Travis as kind of a reference as well for what it's going to look like. And when
was the ACC championship game, and when was the first playoff game? There was 3 weeks in between. That's 3 weeks of reps and practices for that quarterback, and Tate Rodemaker was going to be back.
Yeah, and if they put Georgia in, they might have won the championship too.
Right, yeah, because Georgia was that good. I mean, I'm not saying Florida State would have realistically had a chance at winning the championship, because I think Michigan was better than them. I think that Alabama and Georgia were both better than them. Washington, I would even make an argument, was probably better than them. Okay, I understand that. But it doesn't change the fact that they still went 10-0 or 13-0, whatever it was, 12-0. They won their conference, is considered a Power 5 conference, and the committee was still like, well, we can't have a non-SEC team in here, so we're not going to put them in. Like that. That was my only issue with it, because if that had been a role reversal and Florida State was clearly a top 4 team in the ACC in the nation, but had 1 loss, and Alabama was undefeated, but they were like maybe the 6th best team in the nation on a 13-game reference, if you flip the schedules, they would not have kept Alabama out of that either. No,
but it's just the way it's I get it.
It was set up. I wasn't mad about it.
This is how it should be set up now. A conference champion should be awarded a playoff spot, and then from there we can kind of pick and choose.
Yeah,
You're arguing about who the 13th best team is instead of.
I don't think anybody really argues about the 13th best team though, because who the hell cares at that point? And like I said, I didn't really argue with anybody about it. I just felt like the players that were there got robbed of a chance. because it was a chance they deserved.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Tough lesson for life, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
everybody, you know, it's all the powers that be that just make the decisions for you.
Always, every single time.
Yep.
and that holds another 25 minutes of a show here of college football that just happened at the end of the summer showcase. All right, let's go ahead and sign off on this before we keep everybody else who's here for ELF and they're like, why didn't I talk about college football now? All right. I'm Michael Washington. He's Randy Schrader. I want to give a shout out to Sam and Shady Sports Network for giving us a platform once again to talk about ELF. Go take a look at it. Go check out the playoff games. Go buy the package for the playoff games at least. If you were so worried about blowouts and whatnot, this hopefully will not be the case through the playoffs. Maybe we'll get some good football out of the ordeal. We will continue this. Hey, Jamal, I wanted to let you know that overtime's coming back tomorrow night with Zach Bronkhorst. I don't know what time just yet, but be on the lookout for it. I'll tag you. Yeah, anyways, so until next week, thank you for a shout out to our unofficial producer, Jamal, Randy's unofficial producer, Caroline, and CKCustoms.com, our unofficial sponsor as well. You got a shout out you want to give Randy or anything? Or
Jamal, I appreciate you as always. Mike, thank you so much for having me on. Check out CK's Customs, and we'll see you next week. And
see you next week.
Check out the show tomorrow.
Yeah, see you next week. Until then, peace out.